going to continue the conversation now by looking into a bit more detail into the creation, management and distribution of the content that Tim was referring to. So the kind of things you might find on TikTok, but also other platforms such as Instagram or YouTube Shorts. Joining me to do that are Tim Stott, who's in the middle there. He's HBS Executive Producer for Digital. On the far side is Katie Matthews, Little Dot Sport Partnership Director, and Alexander Mölders, Sky Sport Director of Concepts and Performance. Welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us today. Let's crack on. Tim, I'm going to come to you first. We're going to talk predominantly to start with about the FIFA Women's World Cup. Before we see a little clip, what did you do for the Women's World Cup and why?
What did we do?
What did you do and why did you do it?
We did a TikTok activation, which was good, a daily show which was sponsored. Sponsored, everyone hear that? Money. And it was interesting because it took us into a new area of storytelling, which was very different. We had to think very carefully about the platform. Overwhelmingly at events like the Men's World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, Roland Garros events we are distributing short-form digital content for broadcasters to use on their channels. So we can't be too dictatorial about that belongs there and that belongs there. Having said that, obviously some content is far more optimized for news feeds and TikTok, etc. But this one we were specifically focusing on TikTok and what would work. And if you're used to a production environment where you're using production music, suddenly you realize, of course, production music is anthrax to generation TikTok, right? So you've got to get rid of that. And even to the point of post-production, like will post-production actually make this content worse? And the answer is it really often does. So that was the thinking behind that execution. And something that the video will reveal, of course, is how can we leverage our access as the host broadcaster to make this a really compelling proposition.
Fantastic, let's have a look.
Bonjour, I'm Kat Sasso.
And I'm Duda Pavel, coming straight from Sydney.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Hey everybody.
Hello everyone.
Hello, I'm Maxi. I'm in Wellington for the FIFA Women's World Cup.
Coming up on your daily highlight show.
I am so excited.
Football party's just getting started.
First historic win. We got our first World Cup win.
We just won our first match.
Thank you so much for all the support. We're freaking pumped. I'm pretty naked, Describe women's football in 3 words.
Rowing. Couldn't do it.
Everything. It doesn't matter what you do from here. It really doesn't. Ciao. Ciao, bye.
You touched on this, but who was this for? Who was this designed to be watched by?
Generation TikTok. I'm not trying to be simplistic, but it's very much, like I said, it's the most germane to a single platform thing we've ever done. For the benefit of the University of Chichester, did I get it right, students? A few things to unpack there for a young media student. One is the access is everything, right? If you are not getting the access, it's literally this close to the players, you're not in the hunt. The second thing was, of course, is knowledge, and not just knowledge of the sport, but also we need to know which players are good with social media, right? So if we know that someone's already active on TikTok as a player, it's a good chance when we go to hand her a phone that she'll say yes. And that brings on the third thing, when we're recruiting these people for the best job in the world, is their personality and their attitude, right? Because handing the phones to players was an absolute game changer for us, and it's all about saying, hi, you don't know me, but I'm a nice person. Would you just take the phone and do it? Thank the fans back home. And there's no one who won't say thank you if asked nicely to do so. So it's very much Generation TikTok. There are mixed levels of production there, but that is more of a sizzle reel. Like I said, overwhelmingly, those raw moments worked really well. And also, as I tell my team, we like to produce content the way users share content. So you can see us, we're actually scraping the channels of the national federations there because they've got great access, right? And if we bring that all into the mixing pot, we get a really quite intimate insight into how the teams are travelling through the FIFA Women's World Cup.
From your point of view, Tim, what does success look like and how successful was that?
Really successful. I mean, FIFA have some numbers about how much they grew the platform, etc. It was a real deal breaker. In terms of women's football, I think Tim would say that was the most watched women's football content ever on TikTok by absolute country mile. So that is certainly a measure of success. In terms of innovation, it's been really successful for us because we are a broadcast company. So we're a host broadcast company with big expensive cameras, and we've got to get our head around putting a €800 mobile phone in someone's hand and saying that deserves the same priority as those €48,000 cameras.
On that very, very salient point, Timothy, how on earth does 916 you're the host broadcaster for some of the biggest tournaments in the world. How does 916 content fit into the overall sports output and workflow for these events? Because let's be frank about it, having two parallel production workflows is probably not massively efficient.
But it's massively necessary. When I started this, people would come up to me and say, hi Tim, you don't need your own workflow, you can just crop the 16:9 content and that will pass off as... Generation TikTok can smell a conspiracy, right? If you're trying to pass off the sort of content that the TikToker's dad might watch on the TV as TikTok content, there's a good chance you'll be caught out. And it's not just things like production music, as I mentioned, or production, or what's obviously 16:9 traditional TV graphics. It's just that you're not actually taking an original approach to the project and coming up with original ideas. So when it comes to budget, if someone, hint for the crowd, if someone ever says to you, don't worry, you can just operate under the umbrella of 16:9 production, say no.
We haven't mentioned the word authentic. Is this because it's not authentic? Is that what it is?
This is very authentic.
Yes, there we go. Right, we'll come back to authenticity in a minute, but that's part of this, isn't it? If it's not authentic to the platform, therefore, as you said, they'll smell it.
And that's the appeal to brands, right? Big brands can afford squillions of 30-second TV adverts that cost a lot of money. Why do they go into this territory? Because having a real super fan, Tim talked before about the IPC, we're also involved in a Paralympian, having a professional athlete share their life in an authentic way, that's the sort of connection you just can't get when you're doing traditional TV production. So that is a real power of authenticity.
Thank you very much, Tim. We'll come back to you in a bit. We're going to come to Katie now. We're going to change sports. We're going to go talk about cricket. We're going to talk about tennis. We're going to talk about Italian football. It's not a complete change of sport. We're going to start with a couple of clips from the ECB, England and Wales Cricket Board. Do you want to tee them up, Katie? Tell us what we're going to see.
Yes, and I'm now slightly regretting that I took out the Taylor Swift clip
it was referenced as well,
that Tim mentioned earlier, but that was created by the guys at Little Dot. Yes, we work with the ECB and we launched their England Cricket TikTok channel at the start of last year, obviously going into an Ashes summer, so big summer for England cricket and a great opportunity to utilise TikTok as a platform incredibly popular with Gen Z, as already touched on, to help the ECB reach a younger audience, a more diverse audience, particularly wanting to reach more female audiences. And we know, in terms of what makes a good content mix when you're going after those audiences specifically, that having a good level of original content in the content plans is really important. So again, Tim touched on it earlier, but utilising the access to athletes that a governing body has and doing that as much as possible, particularly when you're aiming at female fans. We know that it really over-indexes with female audiences to see personality-driven content from athletes, and that is even more the case when you utilise female athletes within that original content. So that was really important. Utilising the archive, it can't all be original content, and utilising the extensive archive, but doing it in a really TikTok way. Leaning into what makes TikTok unique, so trending audios, trending memes, fast-paced edits, being playful and light-hearted in tone. Again, Tim mentioned it earlier, but it's the platform where you can probably have the most fun and be more playful than perhaps on other platforms, so that was important. And then more recently, and again, this is something Tim touched on, but we know from our own analytics, but also from what TikTok are telling us, that the audience attention spans are pushing beyond kind of what we've seen more traditionally on TikTok as being very short form content, and actually content over 1 minute is performing much more strongly on the platform. And we're also seeing it that's the kind of content that's being pushed more on the For You page. So it's helping the governing body reach an audience beyond their existing follower base. So increasing the volume of 1 minute plus content has been something that we've been introducing into the content plans more recently. So yeah, there's a couple of clips that bring some of these to light. Not the Taylor Swift clip, unfortunately.
Well, let's play the Lauren Bell one first.
Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Treat yourself in words unspoken, live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Treat yourself in words unspoken, live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rest is still unwritten.
So a couple of things about that clip. The first is that it was created and published in response to a user's comment on the platform saying something about Lauren Bell doing more TikToks than wickets. And our editor kind of was like, hang on a minute, not the case, and put that clip together to showcase some of the kind of the real athleticism from Lauren Bell and to kind of push back on that. Again, kind of a quite playful thing to do on the platform. Obviously, utilising a trending audio, and utilising archive in a way which is very kind of native to TikTok.
Thank you. This next one is less action and more behind the scenes. Is that a fair thing to say? Should we play it and you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do that.
This is filming, huh? It's a bit. Solid. Minus 10. No, you're in the zero. Okay. Oh, that's right.
Nice shot!
Wow, 25. And just.
Bang! It's good!
This is filming, huh?
Yeah, boy. Oh my god! This is why I didn't play this game, because how can you hit one good and then the next one's rubbish?
Maybe I need to
Should we cut this one? Could we cut this one short? I think we get the idea. What's unique about that? Go, you tell us.
Yeah, I was going to say the reason we cut that short is because that's one of the ones that has been pushed over a minute specifically to play to that longer form that we're seeing being more successful on TikTok recently. So yeah, we thought we'd cut it short, but it's a really nice example of how to use your access to athletes again in a really TikTok focused way with the little sounds and the kind of playful edit. And that was published in the last couple of weeks and is already one of the most successful videos on the platform.
Anything with Mark Woodin tends to do well on social media. Let's move on. Let's change sports. LTA. Tell us about your relationship with that association and then the clips we're going to see.
Yeah, so we work with the LTA and have done for the last couple of years across all of their social content. They want to use platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, similarly to the ECB, to reach a more diverse audience, reach younger audiences, more females, but also to show tennis in a slightly different light. So in a way that perhaps you're not seeing when you sit down and watch Wimbledon or when you're following tennis on the BBC website, how to bring tennis, make it more accessible and entertaining to us in a slightly different way to a slightly different audience. And so the clips that I've chosen for this hopefully help showcase that.
Here comes the hurricane. 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 Oh! Katrina, Katrina, Katrina. Katrina, Katrina, Katrina.
Do you want the next one straight on?
Yeah, go split.
So that, without being rude, that looks like something I might have done after a trip to the pub. Why is that successful? Let's just say the production values on that aren't perhaps as they were for the other ones. Is that fair? Yeah. But why is that? Tell us how that's become successful based on what it is.
Yeah, I think I picked those clips specifically to talk to the point about showing tennis in a different light, and that one of the objectives of the digital strategy on Instagram, TikTok for LTA is to show it as being a more playful environment. And if you're sitting down and only seeing tennis because you're watching the Grand Slams, then that's not the impression that you're getting of tennis. We've also did a lot of insight analysis into what works on the platform, and content that is very shareable and that relates or is relatable for the casual tennis player performs really, really strongly. People that play doubles can probably relate to that, and they share it with their doubles partner, and it is something that then gets pushed beyond your existing follower base because your audience are sharing it outwards. It also is an example of using, again, a trending audio and a trending meme that was doing the rounds at the time, so tapping into that, and that's a reason that was successful. And then the other clip is one of the most successful clips on the channel's history. It's been seen by, I think, about 6.5 million people, just that one clip. Again, just shows a very playful side. It's an environment where the content creators and producers are able to be a bit more lighthearted, and just shows tennis in a different way than when you sit down and watch centre court.
It makes a change from seeing angry tennis players shouting at the umpire, which he tends to get a lot. So that's nice. The last clip we're going to show is from Serie A, which I guess shows how important humour is to all of the things that quite a lot of things we do on TikTok.
So the clip from Serie A is actually a YouTube short, and the reason I wanted to include it is because we've talked quite a lot about 9x16 content, but not touched on shorts yet. And if you have a YouTube channel, then having a short strategy as part of that is incredibly important. We know, again, from our own insight at Little Dot, that YouTube shorts drive subscriber growth at about double the rate of longer form videos, and also drives engagement rate at about 5 times the rate of longer form videos. So super important if you're looking to drive your subscriber growth base, and when you have subscribers, they're more likely to watch your long form content, which then monetizes. So having a short strategy is super important. We took over publishing shorts for Serie A at the start of last season, so the 2022-23 season, and at that point shorts were still fairly in its infancy, and we'd done quite a in-depth research into what makes a good YouTube short in the world of sport, and the findings that came out of that was kind of alternative angles to match action, so in what's not necessarily being shown on the broadcast but what's being picked up by other cameras, peripheral action, so what's being seen kind of from on other players or from the bench or in the crowd, reactions to things going on the pitch, manager reactions, player reactions, and also evergreen content. So we could publish a clip, it performed quite well, but actually it's weeks or months later where it really takes off. So the clip from Serie A that you're about to show is an example of that.
Amazing, thank you very much. Let's see it.
Obviously helps that Mourinho's in it, always does well, always has big numbers. But yeah, that's I think the most successful clip on the channel with 45.5 million views just on that one clip.
And it's not just Mourinho though, is it? So it's the access you've got to the fact that you're seeing the real reaction to what's happened.
Yeah, exactly. It's a combination of all the things that we'd seen in the insights was popular on shorts. So it's the other alternative view, the reaction, the fact that you've got that split screen edit is really nice. We saw an example earlier on the TikTok example as well, but they often perform well. Original audio on the shorts clip, obviously different to what you see on TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant stuff. Thank you very much. Alex, you've been very patient. Thank you for waiting for your turn. One of the questions I asked Tim just now was about the place that Live has on TikTok. So we're going to now spend a few minutes talking about what Sky Sport in Germany did for Der Klassiker, which is obviously Bayern Munich versus Borussia Dortmund. in 9/16. So I think we'll play the clip first, if that's what we'll talk about, okay?
Wir sind Bench und Janni für Kickbase und sind auf TikTok live zum Klassiker.
Der Ball rollt.
Und er fängt!
Das ist das 1-0.
Schreibt mal gerne in den Chat, was eure Meinung ist.
Und das steht 1-0.
Wenn das nicht so wie war,
Ja, angefeuert, sag ich mal. 1 gegen Kobel und total gehalten.
Wir können es nicht oft genug angucken.
Warum heißt das Spiel der Klassiker? Ja oder nein, ihr könnt abstimmen. Dreht der BVB die Partie noch?
Wir sind live auf TikTok.
Marcel ruft an.
Hey Jungs, das Spiel ist noch offen. Es gibt viele Überraschungen und vielleicht wird es noch gedreht.
Haaland und jetzt ist es da. Und Phil Foden, siehst du? Jetzt macht er wieder eins. Die Top-Goalscorer in diesem Derby. Rooney, ja gut, den dürfen wir nicht vergessen.
Hier,
Geld 259 Kickbase-Punkte. Das Spiel ist vorbei. Eine enorme Interaktion. Wir haben miterlebt, wie Leute auf der Couch mitfiebern. Und natürlich auch, wie sie reagieren auf die 4-0 der Bayern.
Alex, tell us a bit about that. Tell us about why, first of all, why you were doing it live on TikTok. That's probably a good place to start.
So we put a lot of engagement or a lot of effort into the engagement strategies that we just heard about, non-live sports content on TikTok, on social media in general. But at the beginning of last season, we said, okay, we want to really try to bring in live sports on these social media platforms. And we said, okay, let's do roughly 10 cases, and that's what you've seen. Most of it was from the Klassiker, which is Bayern against Dortmund, but also in Premier League. We even did it for Formula One and Super Cup. So a range of 10 events, mostly football, a bit of motorsports, in order to experiment. I think Tim said beforehand, TikTok and other social media platforms are really there to experiment. And we said, okay, let's do that and let's try something different from time to time. So include in-match clips, include talents, influencers, include a live stream, so the whole match, and then analyze it, what works well and what doesn't.
Excellent. And were you having two separate teams doing this, or was it one team doing both outputs? How did it manifest itself?
So in the end, Tim, I agree and disagree a bit with you. So we were standing, let's say, on the shoulders of the live TV crew, and the production value there is really, really high. And then we put a small SWAT team on the TikTok or social media live streaming. So it was the rough estimate. Okay, let's cut costs by 95% for the second one. Still has to be good enough, but doesn't have to fulfill all the boxes from a live TV crew. So in the end, yes, there were two different sets of people, but if there are 90 people on the TV side, there were maybe one or two on the live streaming side for 9/16. So the level of the quality also dropped, to be fair. But this is our way in order to have a scalable model. We are not there yet 100%, but that was our approach, to take it step by step and really see where can we cut something and where it's really worthwhile to put in people and resources.
And what were your have you come to any conclusions from that process?
So I think one thing that is true is if you include a live feed, that is really driving retention for social media platforms. So also for TikTok, that is true. We saw that a couple of minutes, which is huge on TikTok, people were watching a stream. I think that was the first learning. So wherever you can, if it's live or near live, this is something that we would want to do. And on the other side, I think we spoke a lot about authenticity. We are trying to bring in talents that bring in a community as well. So in the clip, you might have noticed there were two fantasy football guys, and they brought in a couple of 100,000 fantasy footballers, and they were the most engaged group for that stream. Even though it was open for everyone, they brought in a niche group that were mostly talking about points and how the team scored there.
I asked this to Tim, but the same thing applies to you. What's successful? So when it comes to this, what is successful, and was it successful?
So as we said, we set that up as a first 10 use cases, and if you look into reach or free viewers, high reach, retention on these platforms, driving subscribers, and so on, I think all those cases were successful, and we really saw what the factors were in terms of driving retention, for example. What is the missing link, and this is what Sandro said in the beginning, as Sky Sports, our main business so far is the subscription business. And we are really looking into the journey, where can we take a free viewer into our Sky Sports world? How can we drive them on our own platform? How can we get them to sign up for a subscription? So to make it from 4 out of 10 to 5 out of 10. And I think we have some insights, but we did not find the silver bullet yet. So this is why we'll keep exploring, and this will be really key. So whatever platform, will it be operated or owned, has the best funnel. I think for a business like ours, this will be the deciding factor, which can really prove to our CFO, to our CEO, okay, we should really go from 10 TikTok broadcasts to 100 next year. And yeah.
Excellent. Well, if we don't have a silver bullet for the monetization, perhaps let's just touch more deeply on the 9/16 versus 16:9 conversation, which I feel is brewing between you two here. Tim, you're not so keen on the one size fits all, if that's the way to end, but Alex seems to think there's a way of doing it. Tim, is there anything that you can learn perhaps from the Classica that you can take back to HBO?
Yeah, I'm feeling contrite now, I've got to say. I was talking about actually post-produced content, right? So obviously, well, it's a good point. You've got all that infrastructure producing the live event. Do you go for a vertical feed which is extracted from the world feed, or do you go for a vertical camera which is only available on that platform? That's a good question, because one thing we've learned is that when people can see, for us, unseen angles, if you think of a football match, there are all these camera angles that never, ever see the light of day. I think, was it 3 cameras do? Jamie, you'd know this. 3 cameras do 80% of all the live shots at a football match, and there are 30-something odd in a venue. Those cameras have a really good utility for us, whether you're cutting them live just because they are exclusive to 9/16. So that's an interesting point. On the contrary, you lose the ball because the camera's not on it. People are saying, well, now I should go back to traditional broadcast. So somewhere in between, I think, lies the truth. But I'm a strong believer that if I'm doing 9/16 as a complementary, as a second screen experience, that people might actually be watching both, right? They've subscribed to Sky Sports, they've got the football match on the big screen, but they also are getting some extra insight by accessing that vertical on their phone. If that answers your question well.
Yes, it did. Alex, on your live version, did you have the live match in the top half and the interaction in the bottom? Was it a split screen or not?
Sometimes yes.
Yeah.
So as I said, so for example, for Premier League, we were able to include in-match clips. So you mostly saw the commentator, and he interacted with the community, and when there was a goal, maybe a few seconds later, we were able to play the clip. For Formula One, for example, you would really have a split screen between a female driver of F1 Academy, who was our commentator at the time, and cropped 16:9 feed live from the Formula One race on top. We are playing around with it, really. So sometimes it's this shot, sometimes it's a different setting. We see an effect of having live footage in there, and I totally agree. You have to find the right way in order not just to put in a simple 16:9 feed and then just leave it there, and this is not too exciting. But sometimes you can play around with it, and from time to time, but graphics need to be adapted, shots need to be adapted, talents need to sit really tight if they are two. So stuff like this has to happen.
Can technology help this, or can the wider community help with some of these challenges, do you think?
So I think from a production point of view, the tools that were available really got us fast from, okay, what can we do into broadcasting live on TikTok? Also how the integration of these tools work and being on air sometimes is much easier than we would have thought beforehand. I think once we go from the experimentation style into, okay, really full high quality broadcasts, there might need to be a few more steps. But I think it was not a barrier for us, the existing technology. So we worked with Vector from Viz, we worked with vMix. They're pretty powerful tools out there. And then, but as a note, I mean, we were standing on the shoulders of the live programming. So there was already a commentator feed produced for the live programming, and we just needed to plug that into a high-end laptop, and then it was there. So if we would have taken that all from scratch, I think there would be much more barriers. But it's an opportunity for broadcasters like Sky to get another broadcast on top without doubling the effort.
Amazing, thank you. Katie, I'd like to pick up on something that you touched on very cleverly in your clips. The difference between Shorts and TikTok was the example that you gave, but how important is it to ensure that the content is relevant to the platform? It sounds like it's very important, but very's not got an answer. So if you expand on that for me, how important is it that the platform content is authentic to that platform?
Yeah, unfortunately for people looking at ways of doing this as efficiently as possible, the answer is that it is very important. What works for one platform won't necessarily work for another. There are efficiencies that can be made. You can utilise the same footage but edit it slightly differently. But yeah, very different lengths, different use of audio, and yeah, different types of edit. You saw in the TikTok examples that is the space where rights holders are more comfortable to be playful, light-hearted, lean into humour, whereas on YouTube they might be less likely to do that. Also, we see the types of clips that perform really well on YouTube Shorts are very, very different to what performs very well on TikTok. So yeah, the answer is very important to differentiate across the different platforms.
But the efficiency, that you can't just recrop the same thing and pump it out. These are editorially very different, is what we're saying, aren't we?
Yeah.
Technology's not going to save us there, is it?
No, there are efficiencies that I think TikTok and Instagram can be slightly interchangeable. Some content that goes on TikTok can also live quite comfortably on Instagram, and also if you're publishing to Snap as well, there's some movement that can be done around the platforms. And some partners do that. We do it with certain partners where we feel like a clip actually is relevant to both platforms and they can live on both. So yeah, there are ways that you can do that, or like the chip challenge example with the England cricket clip, that there's a slightly different edit that you'd put on to Instagram versus TikTok, but it's the same footage. So there are efficiencies there as well.
Thank you. Tim, when you did the Rugby World Cup, you had certain bits of content which you provided to broadcasters, if I'm wrong about this, correct me, without specifying where it was supposed to go. You let them decide, is that correct? So rather than you decide it goes to TikTok, the broadcasters in this case made that decision.
So sometimes we'll say perfect for TikTok or whatever, just make it clear.
Yeah.
But they've made it clear to us that they don't want us to be too prescriptive, which is fine. But when you look at we do an interface with lots of assets in a single view above the fold. Our brand promises, whereas there will be a range of content to suit news feeds, to suit TikTok, to suit 916, available in a single view. And it's usually pretty obvious what content goes where, and when we track it, which we do quite manually actually, when we're tracking that content performance, we're seeing overwhelmingly they're putting it on the platforms and in the social media platforms that we suggest it should go in.
Athlete-centered content was mentioned this morning, and it's something I think you've all touched on in some way. How do you get the athletes, whether it be footballers, whether it be cricketers, etc., to engage with you, either both in terms of editorial, but also technically? Do they just need a phone? How do they get this stuff to you? How does that work? So we know that the athlete content works and is successful, but how do you editorially or operationally try and make that content work? Tim, do you give players phones? Katie, do you give players phones and just go, crack on, lads? Is that how it works?
We do give athletes phones at times. We get them to be, when that works, it works well. I think we do a lot of shoots with talent that are pre-planned in advance, and we'll set up something. What we tend to find when we've got access on media days is that actually the athletes like doing the stuff that we're doing, because it's not a sit down and an interview about how their performance is and what they think of the manager or what they think of the opposition. It's actually, do you want to come and have a go at this quiz, or do you want to come and try this reaction game? And they're athletes, so they're competitive. They like doing that kind of stuff. And we get really good engagement from athletes on that because they find it fun. Also, as Tim touched on, certain athletes are really up for it because they understand the value of it. They're TikTok natives themselves, and they just get why they're doing it, and they enjoy doing it, and they feel very comfortable doing it. Other athletes a bit less so, and I think respecting that is also really important.
Tim?
It's horses for courses. Some people tell us they like the idea of, they're on TikTok, they like the idea, but they hate the editing. So my answer is don't make them edit, right? So we'll get them to shoot on a phone, and we'll take the clips in, and usually you can turn that into decent quality material in about a couple of hours edit tops. Some people go crazy. I think I used the example, we had a vision impaired Austrian skier, and she did The Sound of Music. Right? She's running through the Alps with a dog at her feet, and her boyfriend was filming her pretend to wake up in the morning and it's just crazy. But she just totally took to the whole idea of doing the production. And my view is, let them go, right? If that's what they feel comfortable, let them. You can do as much or as little production as you want. But the main thing is they've got to want to do it. As soon as you get in the position where they feel like they're forced through some sort of contract or deal with their federation, I think you're already in trouble, because if it's not authentic, people will notice pretty quickly.
I think the other thing I was going to say is be prepared for the different eventualities. Quite often things are really fluid when there's athlete access, and so having an idea that can be executed in 30 seconds, that can be executed when a player's walking to somewhere, that can be done when there's two players interacting with each other, one idea that takes a bit longer, but just having a kind of a bank of ideas rather than just having one or two things that in certain situations require a different setup, because you're not always going to get a player to come over and do a quiz or take part in a game, but you might, as they're walking through, be able to ask them what their favourite Taylor Swift song is, and it takes seconds, and you've got a really valuable piece of content.
Amazing, thank you. And we're going to end with a couple of predictions. Each of the panel is going to give us a prediction. We're going to hold them to it and come back in 12 months' time and see whether it came true. We're not. We're going to. Where are we going? What's happening next? I mean, TikTok has moved on loads. Tim shared that with us already. Alex, we'll start with you. Where is 916 content going to be in, let's say, 12 months' time?
I'm pretty convinced, maybe following up from the discussion, that there will be, within the next 12 months, there will be one superstar athlete acquiring rights by themselves and opening up their own network or social media or digital first live sports experience. And I think it has a lot to do with access and with choice. What do they want to do? And I could imagine that, let's say, you could watch the Wimbledon final on Roger Federer's Instagram account or TikTok or YouTube, or watch the last day of Augusta on Tiger Woods' experience. And I'm pretty convinced that there will be a shift of more competitors coming from the athlete space, driven by 9-16, the access, live production tools that the auditorium here provides, and that there will be at least one superstar opening up a digital network like this.
Excellent, thank you. Katie, give us a prediction.
I think development in the way that rights holders, governing bodies are able to monetize their content on 9x16, so whether that be through the ways that the platforms themselves are enabling revenue generation. Again, Tim at TikTok kind of touched on that being slowly introduced to that platform. We're seeing shifts on Facebook and how they monetize content, and that's impacting how Reels is monetized on that platform. So I think we'll see a shift in how brands and rights holders are able to monetize through that content, and also through rights holders able to sell space on their channels to brands in a more, in an evolving way, particularly somewhere like TikTok, where that's still quite in its infancy.
Thank you very much. Tim, take us home.
Live and longer. I think the same people we're talking about, the creators who are doing those short form videos now, why wouldn't they be doing your watch along? why wouldn't they be there for the whole match with you? We know that people are doing watch-alongs while they're watching the subscription they've paid for. And so I think there's a huge growth area there and more opportunities for monetization, mid-roll advertisements, etc. Tim Edwards spoke about the fact that TikTok is definitely steering creators into that area, and I think that's something to look out for.
That's brilliant. Thanks, guys. Alex, Tim, Katie, thank you for your time. Please join me in thanking the panel for their time today.